This episode is brought to you by Zarzar Law. I'm investigative journalist Molly Barrows. For years, I've covered the stories that made headlines in Northwest Florida and all along the Gulf Coast. Murders, missing persons, and mysteries of all kinds. These cases are far from over for many victims because the full story has yet to surface. Join me for Gulf Coast Confidential, where I dive into the saltier side of the South and expose the lies, greed, and corruption that often weighs down the truth. It's time to turn the tide and get a shot at justice. Hey, y'all, and welcome to the Gulf Coast Confidential podcast. If you haven't already, we would love it if you would please like and subscribe, and we'd also love to hear from you. We've heard from so many of you already on a lot of different cases, but especially about the one on August Borden, and we appreciate all your comments, and we want you to know that we're going to continue to follow that case. We're talking to other families in the area who have also had frustrating experiences with the Tuscumbia City Schools District, so we're going to keep you posted on what we learn. So anyway, we would love to hear from you just like we have on all of these cases, and if you have a suggestion, we would love to hear that too, because, you know, we're always talking about these what the feezy cases is what we call them here on the podcast. They're breaking and brewing and bubbling up right here in our beautiful neck of the woods in Northwest Florida, all along the Gulf Coast, and really anywhere there are people.
Right, where there are people like us. Just people.
Exactly. Well, today's episode is called Shot in the Neck, Murder for Hire. When will Stephanie Linville Perdue go to trial? This is a wild case, y'all. It's our very own murder for hire mystery of sorts. Not even a mystery, according to police. I should say really a murder for hire dramatic hell for the victim. The now ex-husband of Stephanie Perdue, Shawn Purdue, had a successful business, a single dad with a special needs daughter that he had full custody of, divorced after 20 years, looking for someone to build his life with, and he thought he found an answer to prayer, a nurse who could help him with his daughter who needs 24-hour around-the-clock care, who seemed to love him, that he was committed to building a life with, and that is the exact opposite of what he got. In fact, he got someone that was arrested for shooting him through the shoulder that ended up going into his neck, and then he survived that. She was arrested, got out on bond, went back and got in his face again, according to police, violated a restraining order, and then went back to jail, and then still blamed him for her problems and went to 2 different inmates to hire them to try to get them to kill him for her for $10,000. And y'all, this happened a few years ago. She still hadn't gone to trial yet. This man can't sleep. He's got PTSD. He's lost custody of his special needs child because of all the drama in his life and various other issues. And, you know, we're going to talk about what happened to him from his perspective. We're going to update you on the case. There's a lot to get into with that, and we are looking forward to breaking it down for you. But before we jump into it, you know, a minute ago I mentioned August Borden, 15-year-old football player, if you hadn't been following our podcast stories on those. But he basically, his mama dropped him off early one day for football practice. He was there all day practicing, weightlifting, you name it. Well, by 4-something in the afternoon, when she's about to leave to go pick him up, she gets a call from another parent that he is being life flighted to UAB in Birmingham because he's got such severe head and facial injuries. And to this day, they still don't know what happened. So we've really been following up on these school districts. It's brought a lot of people that have come to us and said, you know, I've had similar problems, maybe not as dramatic. Maybe the kid didn't get beaten to death, but their child is also being treated unfairly, whether it's in Alabama, whether it's in Florida. We are hearing from people all over the country that are struggling and frustrating with their own schools and what they feel like is silencing of parents to protect certain individuals for whatever reason, not following their own rules. And we want to talk about a case that is trending right now that sort of, I think, exemplifies that. So, Pam, what do you know about this situation?
This happened in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and it's a junior varsity game, and it just happened 3 days ago or 3 nights ago. And there was 2 teams there, the Kalamazoo Central and then Lakeshore. That's the teams that are playing. Well, one of the Lakeshore players had got tackled by big number 73 on the Central team. He got tackled by him. Fair enough tackle, I guess. I'm not a football person, but it was what I've seen before. And he laid him out. Well, you know, the play's dead after that's over. Well, you see the guy stand up, and he reminds me of the big guy on Blindside. You know, the big guy?
Yes.
He looks like he stood up and he looked down at, the boy's name is Colton. We don't know number 73's name yet, but he looks down at Colton and he literally does almost like a belly flop, like a belly buster onto him on the ground at perpendicular.
And the kid's not moving at all.
No, and it broke his back or spine in 2 places. So now we have all this stuff, all this talk back and this is nothing new apparently. You know, we've just dealt with August. We've got the mystery of Avery Pickle over in Alberta. So, I mean, I've never seen it where people get mad at people for using good sense and going, A, that ain't right, and B, what's going on?
I know when I first saw that, it just made me gasp out loud
Uh-huh.
because he was standing there, paused. There's no reason why he needed to jump on that kid. The kid wasn't even moving at that point. And I mean, I get you're in the moment, you're excited, your adrenaline's going. I don't know what it's like to be a teenage boy. I'm thankful for that.
Yeah, right.
But I can't help but think, you know, your adrenaline's going, you got that testosterone going, that chest beating. I was a man.
Yeah,
I'm gonna, you know, mow people over. I mean, you kind of have to have that in order to enjoy getting out there and beating up on your peers,
Yeah.
you know. But I mean, all in the name of sports, it's just part of it. But that to me is not just unsportsmanlike. That to me is like battery.
Oh, yeah. That's what people are
And the
saying.
fact that these schools aren't addressing it. Why don't we know this kid's name?
Right. Well, I don't know, maybe because they shouldn't have maybe said the other kid's name yet, but they did. And the mother's the one that took the video. And the mother also shared with media going, I was looking going, hey, is that my kid? You know, so then she goes down there. And to me, I love sports, and I know it's a rough and tumble thing. I was a catcher in fast pitch softball, so I rolled around everywhere, even in the World Series. I mean, I knew people were coming in with their cleats high, with their cleats low, whatever, you know, and cleats high is against the rules, but it happens. So, I mean, I look at stuff like that, and I mean, there is a little bit of give and take, but the play was over. Everybody else had walked away. You see that? The whole bunch of the boys have walked away. And he looks down like, this would be the coolest thing to do ever. And then it's not just like fall, like a
No.
tree. It is let me pull my feet up off the ground.
Yes.
And they call that sometimes, and I'm not exactly sure, but I have heard this, pancaking, belly busting, you know, body slamming, you know, just like taking them down, dirty hits, you know, stuff
It
like that.
absolutely looked like a dirty hit.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a big individual on a much smaller individual who's already prone and on the ground, and he comes up off of his feet and he's laid out flat like a plank, and he takes his full weight and crushes that
Right,
kid.
right.
I mean, if I were the mama, I don't know that I would have been wanting to come up off those
Yeah.
bleachers and go after that kid. Like, unbelievable to
You
me.
could tell she was emotional and she was, you know, appropriately
No,
invested.
she handled it well. I'm not saying I
I'm
would have
talking
handled
about-
it
me
well.
either. Yeah, she's. We don't go by us. We go by other people.
Right.
But, so that there, and then you look, and I was watching the video, which people can watch. There's like 3 or 4 coaches right here. I don't know whose coaches they are, but even if it's the other team, you go out there and go, "Hey, biggin, you don't do that."
Right.
You know, and some people here's where we're starting again. That's why this is going to be another story we're going to have to talk about and follow. Meh, it's football. You know, if you can't do that, go play a girls' cooking game.
Well, and they seem to pick and choose who they want the rules to apply to, just like we saw allegedly in August Borden's situation. It was supposed to be another team player who did this to him, and someone who is allegedly valued by the coaching staff, whose family is allegedly connected in the community and influential. So they decided perhaps that they didn't want to tell the full story about what happened to August because it could potentially interfere with this kid's scholastic career, any potential scholarships. These are the rumors, y'all. This is what we've been told by the family and other members of the community, but it's all still under investigation. So these are just allegations and accusations at this point.
Right.
But it's what fuels the fire for people to say, hey, what's going on in these school districts? Why isn't, my child, why isn't August getting a fair shake? Can other children get fair shakes? And I feel like that's what we're seeing with this situation too. Was this player valued so much that it's okay that they can behave like this?
I don't know. And I don't know if it's just that, not everybody has good home training, and sometimes, and that is where coaches can be so valuable, at least
Right.
every day with young men because they do listen to coaches. But if you're not saying that's a cheap, dirty hit, don't you ever do that again, or don't do it in the first place, But they say the refs didn't see it, the coaches didn't move. So from what I can see, we're going to learn as we go. But the thing is now they're saying the high school association up there, they're saying, well, these two schools are going to work it out between them.
No!
What? No, because that's not going to get anywhere.
I would like to know, is that how policy dictates it should be handled? Is that how the law dictates it should be handled? Is that what his parents want? I mean, they just seem to do what they want when it comes to sports.
I know
it falls under this umbrella of, well, the coach said. And I'm like, what do they suddenly become elected president and Department of Justice and the attorney general and the state prosecutor and the judge and the jury, and they do what they want because they throw a pigskin around? Good Lord.
Yeah. Well, it does. It's just there's no rhyme or reason to it. It's not. We're not even following rules, much less laws and things. When you hurt somebody, you will hear me say, this is my editorializing, however you say that. That ain't football. I can't be all right with that. I can't be all right when you intentionally hurt somebody, or even unintentionally to some points, where it's got a lifelong consequence and injury for this person. I mean, hitting somebody late when you're already committed to running and you hit them, that's different than standing back up and going, I think I'm going to do a swan belly dive.
Yeah, there's at least a beat. There's at least a pause. Yeah. He's standing there. Yeah. And you can be like 1,000, 2 1,000, kerboom.
Yeah. So this is going to be one that we're talking on too, because I posted about it this morning just because I couldn't get it out of my head. And people are already, like, either he needs to go to jail or meh.
Well, and it reminds me of that other incident. I can't remember, and I think you might, whether it's Florida or Alabama, but we talked about it maybe last year. It's been some months, but where the coach shoved some kid's face in his crotch. Do you remember that? Because he was unhappy with what he was doing?
Yeah, that's Hoover, Alabama. That's Coach Gilbert. He went out there and see, now when these teams are practicing, there are drones up there that cover the practice too. So the football players and the coaches and the scouts and stuff can go look at those plays too. So, I mean, there it is on rerun over and over and over with another grown man coach standing right here acting like that's the coolest thing to do.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's
we're working on that one too. Hoover is that one.
Okay. Awesome. Well, we'll continue to follow that case, and I appreciate you bringing us up to speed on it, Pam. And
you're welcome.
Now we'll jump into our main episode today. It's been more than 2.5 years since Stephanie Perdue was arrested for the alleged crime that she still hasn't gone to trial for. That's basically the one where she was accused of hiring someone to try and kill her husband. And it was not just her, it was her boyfriend at the time, too, David Bollier. I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly, but it's Bollier.
Right.
So Bollier sounds pretty nice, actually.
Giving him a nicer
name than at any rate. So David Bollier and Perdue both face charges for this, and we're going to break it all down to you. But it's certainly worrying and frustrating to Shawn Purdue, who is still dealing with the consequences, not just physically, but emotionally, and the family fallout that he's had to deal with. This is such a sad case. We talked to him for quite a while yesterday. What was your impression of Shawn?
He was so sweet and so humble and modest in the way he was talking back. He wasn't overly animated or anything, but I just felt so much empathy and compassion for him. It was like the never-ending terror story.
I know. 57 years old. Shawn grew up in and around the Pace and Milton, Florida area. If you're not familiar with that part of the Panhandle, Santa Rosa County is right next door to Escambia County in Pensacola, and initially was a bedroom community of sorts for Pensacola. Has good schools. People would live over here, drive over to Pensacola to work. Well, now Santa Rosa County is just busting and booming and building left and right. But Shawn Purdue and including now his ex-wife, Stephanie, grew up in this area. We've talked to other friends of Shawn's who saw this relationship unfold. And as we kind of talk about what happened, I just want people to understand a little bit about him. And just, he's a guy that was married for 20 years. The relationship came to an end. He didn't share a lot of details about that, but you certainly got the impression that it was something that hurt him and he was disappointed. He talked about how his parents had been married for many moons, over 50 years, and that was something that he had wanted to achieve as well. That was what he was aiming for. So he was hurt when the relationship ended, his 20-year marriage, but he ended up with sole custody of their daughter. And she is now 15. Her name is Lily, and she has special needs. She has cerebral palsy. She's nonverbal. She's confined to a wheelchair. But looking at the pictures, and we've got some of those, if you're listening, you can't see them. But if you're watching, then you can see just how much he adores her and loves her. And if you can't see the pictures, you can certainly hear it in his voice. He's talked a lot about her yesterday, and so he was taking care of her, but she needs 24-hour around-the-clock care. And he was doing it. He loves it. He doesn't consider it a burden. He loves her, and he's happy to do it. But he was lonely, and he was wanting to build a life with someone who could help him with his daughter, that he could love and be loved in return, and just be the guy that he is. He's a business owner. He has a place called Little Man's Paint and Body right here in Milton. So he's well known in the community, not just with the people that he went to school with and grew up around, but also because he works on a lot of people's cars. And he's well liked by many accounts. In fact, I think that might have even been, she wasn't making too many fans anyway with some of her behavior, but then she gets into jail for all the reasons I touched on and we'll explain more about, and then starts hitting up 2 other inmates to help her kill her husband, and they're the ones that went to the investigators. They went to the Santa Rosa Sheriff's Office, and one of them's like, I don't believe in taking somebody else's life.
Yeah.
And the other one was like, this isn't right. I had to come and tell y'all. So they're just like sitting on the phone like, well, who else is she like pitching this to,
Right. Yeah, the guys that she thought would do wrong were the guys that did right.
Right. And Shawn was saying that their relationship, they'd only been married a year when she shot him, not even quite a year. And he said it had been one hell of a year. That initially they got married and he thought that everything was going well. But, and you heard him talk about it too, but just nothing he did could please her. And, you have your relationships where that's probably true. Maybe 2 people rushed into something and didn't get along. There's disappointment. Maybe there's good reason for one or the other of them to feel that way. But to hear Shawn tell it, this is extreme.
Right, yeah.
Nothing he did. And it would just be this over-the-top, hot-tempered reaction to any and all things that he did. And you can hear him talk about it. And we've got a couple clips of what happened in his words that we will play for you in a second. But, he basically just, I think it sounded to me like he felt like he was being browbeaten. And he was busting his butt trying to make her happy. She wanted a sunroom, so he took out a loan to build a sunroom to a house that was already in his possession. He'd lived there for years, which is nothing wrong with that, but she wanted to have her name on the deed, so he put her name on the deed. He got her a car. She didn't like the car. She griped about it constantly, said she wanted a BMW, so he pulled his finances together, got her a used BMW. Then she complained about that, and just nothing, it was ever good enough.
No. And, well, you could hear him talking. He didn't say any bad words. He didn't call her any names. He just said, we bickered. And, that's an interesting word to me, bickered, especially from someone that doesn't seem like a bickerer. He said, I couldn't do anything right. That she came in there basically like a narcissist, just always. And, we say this every time, and I'm not diagnosing her, but the thing is that surely to goodness he could do some things right, but I think what happens is expectations, like he's thinking, oh, we're going to get married, we're going to have a little family, and you're like a nice lady, I guess.
She's a nurse.
Yeah, right. You're caring or what have you.
Educated,
right?
seem to have your life together.
And they said she was fine when she wanted to be, and had a good personality, couple of them actually, so it was just,
all her personalities were fun on occasion,
nice,
right?
Yeah, except one of them maybe. And he just kind of wanted to appease her, and see, he had the good sense and the social politeness. Like he said she would go through the house kicking stuff and tearing it up. We'd have to keep patching it up like you see people do that are in domestic violence situations. There's always somebody, it seems like, that punches holes in the wall about shoulder high or kicks the wall. So he said she wasn't even embarrassed over that. I was, So here's a nice person, and he's locked in holy hell with this person. She decides to shoot him on Good Friday is when she shoots him. And she decides to go to his work at 5:30 a.m. So let me start this
4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, okay, 4:30. Let me start this fraganackle stuff early with him. He's staying at the business to not be mixing it up with her.
Well, because they'd been separated. She'd been accusing him of domestic violence, and basically there was a restraining order. He had a GPS monitor on there. This is a man who'd never had any of these allegations against him before. Again, committed to his special needs daughter, heartbroken over the loss of his marriage, but doing very well as far as keeping his business up, busting his butt, bending over backwards to try to make this woman happy is the way he would describe it. And then she just constantly riling him up. So I don't know the full details of the domestic violence. I'm not trying to excuse any behavior. He didn't really, to your point, like he wasn't ever standing there pointing fingers like she made me do this or she made me do that. He took full responsibility for any and all things, like his choices in pursuing the relationship, him trying to talk to her. He didn't accuse her of being anything. He didn't name call. He was not ugly about any of it. You just hear a man that is just frustrated. He is hurt. He certainly sounds like he's struggling with PTSD. He can't sleep. Nothing he did seemed to work, and he was just frustrated and at the end of his rope. So to your point, here he is. They're separated. They have a no contact order. He goes to stay at the shop, and he's sleeping, I think he said, in like a shed or an outbuilding away from the main shop. He had a TV out there, a toaster oven, and a cot. And he said the next thing he knows, she's there rousting him up and wanting to talk. She said she's on her way to Tennessee, according to her arrest report, and that she was going to swing by on her way out of town. But she tells the police, I brought a handgun with me because I was afraid he might hurt me. Well, you're not supposed to be around him. There's a no contact order.
And you came to him.
Right. And so she said she left it in the car. Then she tells, according to this police report, tells police that they start arguing because they had happened to run into each other at a restaurant the day before. And they were having words over that, which I don't even think that's true. He said basically she just came in there trying to start something and he didn't want to engage. He was getting dressed. He said, I was just going to go eat at Waffle House, grab a bite to eat to get away from her because I know we weren't supposed to be around each other. I don't want any more trouble. He said, but she just wasn't, per usual, she wasn't to be mollified or whatever. She just was working herself up. So then as he's leaving, she walks out, goes back to the car, gets the gun. She tells police it's because she was running for the gun because he was running to go do something else. It's redacted, and I can't tell what it was that she was accusing him of running to go do. But she would tell these police that she was trying to go get this gun to defend herself. And, because he was choking her and holding her down and this, that, and the other and grabbing her by the neck. And so she ends up fighting with him for control of this gun when she brings it out, is what she says in this report. And that she was just going to fire it into the air, she told the police. But, according to him, that is not what happened. And we want to play you a little clip of what he said happened.
Got up and gathered my keys and I went out the back door of the building. And that's when she went to her car. As I was walking out, going through the building, and when I opened up that small back door of my shop, I heard a pop, and I felt it in my throat, and I grabbed my throat, and I looked at my hand, there's blood all over it. I looked back at her, she had a gun. So I turned back, and I grabbed her arm, and the gun went to the ground, and just pulled the trigger as fast as I could. All I could thought was to unload that gun. I just knew she was trying to kill me. And then I went through the shop, and I put a rag over my throat, and then I tried to call 911 on my phone, but there was blood all over my cell phone. There's blood on that. So I went to the office and called 911 on that phone. And I think somebody next door, because there was Milton Trust Company in the neighborhood, possibly somebody had heard all the gunshots, and the ambulance and police were there so fast. And I was sitting there. I remember sitting there on the chair in the office thinking, I'm about to die. And all of a sudden the door just swings open, the front door of the shop. Swings open, and she's crawling on her hands and knees. She used to be a nurse. John, please don't call the cops. I can fix it with her word.
It is just heartbreaking to me to hear Shawn Purdue talk about that. Here he is just trying to get out of the situation, feels sharp pain. She shot him in the back. It hits him in the neck. He said he had issues. It's a miracle it didn't kill him, but he said it made him lose his voice for a while. And we're going to talk more about that in just a second. But before we get into more of that, I do want to take a moment to thank our supporter and advertiser of Gulf Coast Confidential, Joe Zarzar of Zarzar Law. We appreciate their support. They represent people who have been hurt through no fault of their own. They are advocates for victims, much like we try to be here on this show and bring the voice of those who otherwise wouldn't be heard or maybe feeling overwhelmed by the system, because it's tough, whether you've been injured in a car accident, whether you've been injured through what you believe is a medical malpractice event, whether you were struck by a drunk driver, people don't know where to start. Like, how do you find justice in a situation like this? If sometimes law enforcement isn't enough, you're looking for compensation, maybe you can't work anymore, it's affected your ability to work, it's impacted your quality of life. Well, you start by making a call, and you make that call to Joe Zarzar of Zarzar Law. They will certainly walk you through the process. Their intake will listen to your story, tell you what they think about what they can do for you, if they can help. And Joe, we know, has helped so many people, and certainly we've talked a lot about those stories right here on our podcast on Gulf Coast Confidential. We've interviewed Joe on several cases that he's representing where people who otherwise wouldn't have anywhere to turn, he's providing that outlet for them.
Definitely. And a lot of times these cases, people will comment and go, that looks like a job for Joe Zarzar. They're like Superman.
Yeah, exactly. So we appreciate his support here on Gulf Coast Confidential, and we're going to turn back now to talking more about Shawn Purdue and this murder for hire trial that is still outstanding, that he's waiting for justice in his case with his ex-wife. So we just heard that clip a minute ago about what he felt and what he said happened. And it's amazing to me that it didn't kill him. But, you know, reading the arrest report, essentially police were saying that they saw where he was initially shot. That's where the gun still was. And then they followed the blood trail, because what he was telling us, he walked to another part of the shop basically to call 911. And he said as he's sitting there on the phone, she came crawling in on her hands and knees, begging him not to tell the police what she did, saying, I'm going to make it right.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I mean, my Lord, her idea of making it right, according to the arrest report, was to blame him. You show up with a no contact order. He's trying to stay away from you. You're picking fights, and this is basically what the police say too when they're investigating it. Then you shoot him. You call it self-defense. Then you're telling him, no, don't tell the police. I'm going to make it right. In other words, she just wants to set him up to make it look like he had done something wrong. And in her mind, it seems to be totally justified.
Well, that's the way it is. The victim, martyr, hero, everything. Pick out one or all three. That's what a person like that is. And he said that he could feel his throat filling up with the blood. And I'm not trying to be gross or anything, but I mean, imagine it went through your shoulder and it's in your throat and it's filling up.
It came out.
Yeah. And I mean, the blood is like,
yeah, the blood is in his throat.
And like that. And so he says he's trying to call 911 on his cell phone, but he can't because his hands and the phone's so bloody. So he has to kind of scurry, or however he got over to the landline, because I remember thinking that and thinking about how all that is. And then here she comes in, like you said, crawling in there, going, don't call the police. I can fix it. She's a nurse. How are you going to fix him? You shouldn't have put that bullet in his neck and shoulder anyway.
I know. And it's so interesting because, you know, he told us about that account, and then I'm reading the arrest report, and when she's telling the police that he was scuffling with her, he was attacking her, it's why she went to get the gun, and then they start fighting, she said, for the gun, and they're both going at it for the same time. She was saying, I was on my hands and knees, and he was trying to fight me. And I was like, is that why you crawled in there on your hands and knees?
Right. Yeah.
You're trying to present it to him like, I'm begging for forgiveness, please don't do this, and the whole time you're still trying to come up with an alibi.
Right.
Sneaky.
Right. Well, she had to be on her hands and knees. That's where she put him, on the ground with a throat full of blood. And so doing that, and she started all this fraganackle stuff, 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning, whatever it is. He's not even awake and dressed yet, and he's trying to be uncomfortable away from this heifer somewhere, you know, and then she wants to act like that. But see, this is how the narrative gets twisted like that. But I mean, there he is. You can't make this lady happy.
No, you certainly can't. And not long before that, he had told us she asked him to increase the payout on his life insurance, and that he had done that as well. So really, there was nothing he didn't do for her.
No.
But it was clearly not enough. And you know, we interviewed a friend of Shawn's who had reached out to me about his story to see if we would be interested in covering it for the podcast. And I want to thank Suzanne Allen for doing that, for reaching out. She knows both of them as well. She went to high school as well with Stephanie and Shawn. Suzanne Allen was essentially saying she has a trail of men. She'd been through quite a few, and that they also had similar stories of, emotional and physical abuse. So I haven't looked into that. I did not see any court records along those lines, but this is one of those things. If you're not familiar with Milton and Pace of Santa Rosa County, it's kind of small town too, y'all. People know each other, they talk. And so apparently, Stephanie had this reputation for being pretty and fun, but woo, you better look out.
Yeah.
And then for sure, I think Shawn will certainly testify to that as well. So this all happened, the shooting on April 15th of 2022. She gets arrested. She's charged with aggravated battery with a deadly weapon, domestic violence. I was surprised that she wasn't charged with attempted murder.
I know.
That surprised me. And we did ask Shawn about that, and he said he didn't understand why that happened either. But at any rate, so she was charged with aggravated battery. She was arrested. She makes bond. She contacts him again. So Shawn has a no contact order in place, a domestic violence injunction. She's not supposed to approach him. You can probably imagine why he wants this, right?
Oh, definitely.
So she violates it. She goes back to jail, and according to the arrest reports on the murder for hire case, that's when she starts approaching these other inmates and being like, he's the problem. He contacted me. He's the reason it got violated. He's the reason I'm back in jail. If he could just go away, if I could get rid of him, my life would be better. They'd have no case. I would be out of jail. It all seemed to be geared towards not her fault. I want out of here. Killing him is the way to get out of here.
Right. And she, in the time being, had met, quote unquote, the love of her life. That David guy.
Oh, David Bollier.
Yeah. So
Bollier.
Yeah, Bollier. Even the reason I say that is because our sheriff out here in Santa Rosa County, that's what he kind of is having a little bit of tongue in cheek fun with this and that way a little bit. He's like, she met the love of her life, and then one of his press conferences was on Valentine's Day. He's like, this is a love story. But it's not really about love, because like when she
it's
found
a lust story,
she found the love of her life, and then the husband of her life had to be gone.
So the shooting happened in April of 2022. So you don't even have a year later, January of 2023, when she's starting to plot to kill him. This is according to Santa Rosa Sheriff's investigators. And, she had shot at him several times, according to the Santa Rosa Sheriff's Office. But it appears, according to their reports and according to his account, that she only hit him once. And the bullet was like clean through his shoulder, then hit his neck and went clean through that as well. So again, a miracle that he survived. But then you fast forward to January of 2023, and Santa Rosa Sheriff's investigators say they got a call from an inmate at the county jail who wanted to tip them off about Stephanie's plans to kill her husband. It was actually the first of two confidential informants who came forward because they, quote unquote, did not agree with what was going on, according to her arrest report. Now, we can break it down, but the first informant has a story to tell, and we're going to tell you what that is. But it's really the second informant that the law enforcement worked with both of them. The second one's the one that really, I think, had her believing that they were actually going to go through with it. And she was really involved in this trap, if you will, that the investigators set up for her to see if she would actually go through with this. Stephanie, I mean. It was just fascinating reading those reports.
Well, and then she got kind of poetic a little bit, or family loving or whatever. Like when she's talking to these guys and stuff back and forth, they go under the guise of my grandma's birthday party is what we're planning, and as also known as to hit on him. And then she's about the party favors, and I think that was either the drugs or the guns or something, I mean, they're so ding. I mean, I listened to the calls between even the Gulf Coast Stapletons over there. And it's like, people, these are recorded, dummies.
I know they seem to forget. And if you're not familiar with the Gulf Coast Stapletons, you can catch it on another episode that we've got called Absolutely I Knew. Yeah. And that's Brittany with an I talking about how she knew her husband, they're kind of semi-infamous TikTok influencers, if you will, and they were featuring their life in all these little videos with all their prettiness and all their pretty places, talking about the Gulf Coast. But we live here in the Gulf Coast, and we think it's pretty, and I don't think that behavior is pretty.
No, it's not.
But her husband got busted for basically a bunch of CSAM, and if you're not familiar with that, I hate to even say it because YouTube and everybody dings you for even talking about it, but it's nasty stuff involving little people and pictures.
Right.
And anyway, so he was like, I don't have any problem with it, and she was like, I don't have any problem with it, but that's the Gulf Coast Stapletons, and we've been following that story, and they've been talking on the phone. Whitney Cheatham and her daddy, we told, we're talking on the phone as well, so we're trying to get some of those phone records. But I mean, I'm not trying to advise criminals, y'all. If you do get busted, whether you're innocent or guilty, Just know people are listening to your phone calls.
Duh.
I mean,
Even
really.
Corey Richens, way up there, that case that we got to get into later, when that fentanyl her husband to death and wrote a children's book about it. So, I mean, there's a bunch of dummies running around here, and that's why they're where they are.
I know, and fentanyl even comes up in this case. But I do want to mention, too, what she's telling these informants as to why she wants them to kill her husband. She stated the reason she wanted her husband dead. Get this, y'all. Now, we've told you all about Shawn Purdue. Grew up all around here. Everybody's known him forever, until her. No issues of domestic violence, nothing violent in his, or criminal really, in his past like this. And she's saying that she wanted him dead because he beat her, he broke her arm, and she accused him of being a pedophile.
Oh, my God.
I mean, she just said there's no barrier that she won't break. Wow. But she stated, according to this arrest report, that she needed this taken care of as soon as possible. As incentive, she was offering to pay this informant's bail. And according to police, she did try to make it happen, but they couldn't do it because this particular inmate didn't have any family connections in the area. So they were concerned that if she gets bail from this other person, she's just going to take off once she's made bond. But yeah, the informant knew Stephanie's husband as quote unquote little man, but couldn't remember his name. But that's like a reference to the name of his business, Little Man Paint and Body. At any rate, the informant stated to Stephanie she may know someone that can do the job for her, and that Stephanie told her she'd pay her $10,000 to do it. And I think it worked out that she said she'd pay her like $3,000 up front, and then once it was done, there'd be another $7,000. And this is the informant that she's telling, I can put you in touch with my boyfriend, David Bollier, when he gets out of jail. And sure enough, David gets involved. He starts talking to this informant where these law enforcement people can hear. Or law enforcement, I should say, can hear and listen to these conversations. And he's messaging Stephanie in the jail, at Santa Rosa County Jail. And apparently, according to police, some of those messages include that, once again, and this comes up pretty regularly, too, Stephanie's complaining because her attorney isn't doing what she needs.
Yeah, she's got to boss him around, too.
Right. So she's not happy with this attorney, and David's trying to help her out with this. And by the way, she said she's letting him stay in her apartment for free. And then she starts complaining about him too. At one point, like if you read more, she wants David dead too.
Everybody with the Y chromosome has to get out of the way, just contribute money or issues, and then get out of here.
I know. Well, and then David did die, y'all.
Yeah.
This is sad. God rest his soul. Rest in peace, David Bollier. But he died in September of 2023. So really not too terribly long after he was arrested for all this. But anyway, before he died, she was ready to send him on his way as well. But he had told her, according to police, that he needed $3,000 up front and $7,000 when it's done. And he followed up by saying that the money was for the attorney. But really, it was not. I don't know if he picked that up.
Secret talk.
Right. Yeah, I'm just teasing. But yeah, that was obviously like their code for that. Well, the second informant's where the grandma business comes in. To your point, it is interesting. Apparently, David and this first informant started talking about how messages in the jail system can be read by the staff, and that's why they're coming up with these code words and coming up with different ways to speak about killing Shawn. And in this case, they were referring to the attorney. You got to pay the attorney such an X amount to handle this case. And another controlled call between the informant and David, where law enforcement was listening, says that he had not recently spoken with Stephanie, and he asked David if he wanted her crew. This is what the informant's saying. Well, I have this crew that's ready to do this, but they're from Alabama. Should I just tell them to go on back? Because without the $3,000 that you promised me up front, they're not going to want to do it. And this is so crazy, but he goes on to tell her about the money and stated, well, we can get you more. He goes, she doesn't even want the house. It's in his name. But if he's dead, then, her name's on it too. She can get it. You can sell it. You can make money off of, there's only $80,000 that's left on the mortgage. You can sell it and keep what's there. She just wants her things out of the house. I mean, it's just crazy to me that they're coming up with all this. Strangers, basically just talking to all these strangers, trying to make these deals like they're at the flea market.
Yeah, I mean, in one of my previous lives, I was a party planner. My family owned a party business, but I can guarantee you it wasn't even this fragmented and fraganacle, and I'm planning some pretty big weddings. But, this is how crazy and clumsy and stupid
I know,
these
and two
people
different
are.
biker gangs get mentioned in all this. David stated he wanted to He was considering having the Mongols take care of him, and I guess they're an outlaw motorcycle gang. And he also said he had considered reaching out to the Bandidos, another outlaw motorcycle gang. But he said that the Bandidos are out of Texas and they won't come here because they'd have to get permission. But I wanted to know all about that.
No, you did.
I was like, permission? Who do you get permission from?
But
Are these like
bikers?
territories or something? Like outlaw motorcycle gang fights? Like, I want to see that.
Right. Stop right here. Don't come over that line.
Wow, how many outlaw motorcycle gangs do we have around here?
I don't know. It was just so crazy. And then when we were listening to him, I'm like, the pictures I've seen of her, like her hair is like kind of wild, like in her mugshot and
It
stuff.
seems to match her personality.
I know,
I'll say
like
that.
La Tigra is what she looks like to me.
My
And he
gosh.
is like a little gentle guy. He's not, I don't know if he's a little man. I can't tell that, but I mean, it's his nickname apparently. And I mean, for her to be saying all this, and I mean, why do we let somebody that you can just see the mental illness all over it, is I guess what I'm saying. And
I agree.
The psychopathy, and I guess the law enforcement were like, this is delicious. Let us get all the whipped cream on this.
I know, and I have to admit, I really did
You
enjoy
too.
reading those reports. I was like, and then what happened? And then, like, apparently this guy tells her, with the police listening, again, I just cannot stress this enough. Like, he's like, I have an idea. I think you should kill him close to where this church is that they're talking about. He said because it's an isolated road, it's on the way to church, and he says, quote unquote, this would be a good spot for a easy hit on him, end quote. He said it's in the middle of nowhere, there's no house or nothing. He goes, quote, do what you need to do and haul ass, end quote.
Wow.
He is just a real strategic planner, isn't
Wow.
he?
Hemingway.
I know. So, yeah, and then apparently before that conversation, this was the second conversation, ended, he reminded again that the house was worth $300,000 and you could just take it, and she would, she just wanted to be free of him and get her belongings out. So he and Stephanie are both working hard to get somebody to do this. They say it's like an urgent matter, and then they get another call. This is when the second informant comes in. So I don't know if the first informant put her in touch with this other informant because she was like, I think I know somebody who can help. But I wasn't sure if she was referring to the second informant or if she was just saying, I can't do this, but somebody else can do it for you. Or maybe even Stephanie was saying, David can help you. So at any rate, it ends up being really more between Stephanie and the second informant, and then David's involved as well. I think they have more than enough just with the calls that they've got on him. But, so in January of 2023, the second informant comes forward, and this person is said to have known Stephanie for a long time and stated that she had been solicited by her to, quote unquote, knock off her husband. And again, going back to the arrest report, like they take a minute and they're like, knock off means to kill. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
It's like you need a whole key.
Yeah, glossary.
Yeah, to determine like what their little keywords are. Not that it's rocket
Right.
science, but
No.
it's still interesting. So this informant tells Stephanie says that Stephanie had solicited her to, quote unquote, knock off her husband multiple times. And Stephanie again offered her money and a lifestyle with her after jail and said she would take care of this woman. So she's like, my mama's got money. She's going to leave me $150,000. I got this house. If he's gone, we can split everything. I'm going to take care of you. And anyway, she said that Stephanie had expressed concern about David too. So remember I mentioned that she was like not big on him at this point either. She starts telling her, well, David's taking advantage of me. David's been making charges to her credit card. And she said that Stephanie also solicited her to, quote unquote, knock off David.
Dang.
I know, because she said David was being sloppy.
Oh, man. Oh, girl.
It's hard to find a good killer these days.
I guess so. Well, shoot, she should just do it herself, I reckon. No, everybody else is stupid.
I know. Well, she had the plan, and she just was dictating from behind the scenes as best she could. So the informant, the second one, got out of jail like about a week after that. And so basically they were talking, and Stephanie was like, well, when you call me, refer to grandmother, or when you come visit me. So this informant actually came to visit, and those calls are recorded too, y'all.
Yeah. Whomever, tell your people. I hope they're not your people.
Right. Now, again, not trying to help criminals cover up their business, but just, everything's recorded.
It's so dumb.
Especially if you're in or anywhere near and around a jail or a prison. So this is when Stephanie starts telling her, like, It's easy. You can give him a quote unquote hot shot and make it look like an accident. What's a hot shot, you ask? Well, it is a loaded syringe with enough fentanyl to kill somebody. So that's what Stephanie had imagined. And she was telling this informant you can put some fentanyl in his drink because he needs to be taken care of. And again, emphasizing that she'll pay her off for doing this, get her protection, whatever she needs to be done, because she keeps telling this informant, well, once he's gone, there's no case against me and I'll be out of jail. I need to get out of here. She goes, I'm the victim here.
Wow.
She literally said that. She goes, I'm the victim here. And I'm like, golly, how many times have we heard that in so many of these cases where these people are doing diabolical things, but because they're not getting their way, in their mind, they're the victim.
Oh, yeah, yeah. She Darvoed it right there. Deny, attack, reverse, the victim, and the offender. And it's a recipe.
Yeah. So she starts telling this informant, like, everywhere he hangs out, his favorite places to eat, his favorite little watering holes where he likes to drop in. She also mentions the church. I guess they'd really given this a lot of thought. It was this out in the middle. It's just creepy to me that you'd even want to, no conscience whatsoever to even, first of all, to want to try to plan something like this is heinous.
Yes.
But then you keep mentioning a church. Like, just throw in a school and a daycare, too, while you're at it, you know?
Well, I mean, it's just whatever's convenient for them. There is no stopgap. There is nothing to say, hey, sometimes we'll think something and go, oh, that's not a good thought. That's not my best thinking. But these folks, it just seems like it gets more deliciouser the crazier they get.
I know. She was basically running through these different options and said, yeah, the church may be your best bet. I'll give you some indication so you know exactly where it is and where the best spot would be to do it. It's also near a baseball field, so you're going to make sure that nobody's playing that day. I mean, just insane.
She has. Think about all the time that they spend in there. If you could use that brain for good, I mean, you might could figure some stuff out.
I know. And then the informant says, well, I don't know what little man looks like. And Stephanie starts telling her that he's bald and he's quote unquote just a little man. And she said she didn't give the approximate height or weight, but she motioned with her hands and said that Stephanie just framed him out as a little man and said it's a job.
Yeah, just go find somebody that matches the silhouette I just did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty much. So that's not rocket science. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I killed this guy. Like, what if there had been no report? She goes and kills the wrong guy just based on this loose description of a bald little man.
I'm tired of her. I'm ready for her to go to
I mean, I don't blame
trial.
him. I don't blame him for wanting this to be done because basically Stephanie told the informant, according to the arrest report, quote, you got to get this done. I'm ready to go home. I'm a victim here, end quote. So anyway, she did get out on the 26th of January. And then, law enforcement is still working with her basically to see how far Stephanie is willing to take this. And Stephanie is again telling this informant, she's like, you got to do this. Are you going to take care of this for me, quote unquote? I've got to get out of here, quote unquote. I'm going crazy, quote unquote. So basically, she said Stephanie told her this is permanent and can end your life. Are you sure you really want to do this? And she was like, I absolutely want my husband taken care of, quote unquote. So anyway, Stephanie said that she was told to call her on the box after the job was done. And this is how they would refer to it. The informant is going to tell Stephanie how the party went or how it didn't go. And anyway, if it went according to plan, she would say the party went great. Everything was amazing for the grandmother's party, by the way. And when the informant would call to speak about her killing, if the party did not go great, she was supposed to say something like, quote unquote, it didn't go.
Wow.
I know, which means he's still alive. So at any rate, again, this was all about for 10 grand. That's what all this was about. And she said, I just, quote unquote, really need him gone. And then she even talked about having to disguise herself and disposing of the body if she wants to do that. So she's throwing it more out there.
Dang.
At first, it was just knocking him off. And now it's like, well, if you need help with the disguise, if you're going to take care of his body. So they have conversations over 2 different meetings that are recorded on these videos. And the informant tells her in the second meeting, oh, the party planning's going really good. You've given me good information. I have a good handle on their schedules. I know what I'm going to do. All that stuff you've been talking about. And they describe in the arrest report that Stephanie's like slightly nodding, listening, going along with everything. And the informant tells her that when she's having this conversation, telling her about how good the party planning is going, she said, I saw a friend of hers that lives in the farms with a special needs kid. So basically, it's her way of saying, I found your husband. I know who it is that you want gone, and I'm going to take care of it. And convincing her.
Oh my God.
I know.
Diabolical.
It is. Even mentioning the special needs kid. So apparently the farms is a term that they use for East Milton. Anyhow, so Stephanie's acknowledging that and even says, quote unquote, that's good. Apparently Stephanie is really pushing her on when to do this. And, these conversations are taking place in late January and moving on into February. And apparently she's in a hurry because March 1st is the court date for her restraining order. So she feels like if he's gone, then the restraining order won't matter.
I guess
it's like whatever she thought, whatever she's accused of doing all those accusations will go away because the guy that accused her is not there anymore. So Stephanie tells this informant, quote, the next 2 weeks would be good to go visit your grandma, end quote. Stephanie stated again, quote, I mean, seriously, it's way overdue, end quote.
Wow.
Yeah. She even tells her she'll give her debit card. She goes, if you want something, you're with me. I'll take care of you. I ain't trying to buy you, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, you are.
I know. Telling her she's in good hands, any and all things that she can do, and that they're going to be faux real friends. I guess that's not how I want a faux real friend to be.
I don't even want to be your friend.
Right, exactly. Not somebody that's trying to convince you to commit a crime, commit murder. So this second video call is basically the day before she's supposed to pull this off. So the informant tells her she'll call her and indicate one way or the other if it went down. So Stephanie tells her, just do what you got to do. Make sure it's complete. You know what I mean? It's almost too easy. We don't know how long she'll be around anyway. Talking about grandma. Stephanie replied with, quote unquote, just do it and walk away. Quote, I hope that there are no interferences and make sure you got all your party favors and stuff. And of course, like what you're talking about, the reference to the party favors is talking about the fentanyl and the drugs. And the informant stated that she has more than enough to take care of that and that she will set up a time to call Stephanie and let her know how the party went. And Stephanie acknowledges this according to the arrest report and says, quote, let me know how grandma's doing and to let her know the status and if she's okay. According to sheriff's investigators, later on Friday, February 3rd of 2023, they gave Stephanie a fake death notification inside the Santa Rosa County Jail. So Stephanie was informed that he was dead, possibly due to an overdose, that he was passed out in his vehicle, he was unresponsive, he'd turned blue in the face, life-saving measures were performed, but they were unsuccessful and he passed. And they said that Stephanie just became upset and she was crying. Aww. And the investigator gave her his business card not long after he informed her of this. And then according to jail logs, then after he leaves, she calls her mom. And Stephanie says they tried to resuscitate him. He was blue and the narcotics unit was there to come tell me about it. And she said, I didn't know he was into drugs. She was just in shock that the whole reason, and then she tells her mom, the whole reason I'm even in here is because he contacted me and my bond was revoked. And Stephanie said, well, he doesn't exist anymore and they need to release me.
Yep. See, that's how crazy her mind is.
Yeah. Stephanie starts telling her mom this attorney needs to get off his butt, basically, and go to the judge and do something about this. If he had been dead, his body's not even cold good. And she's already like, how do I get out of here? And she said, he needs to get before the judge and do something about this. And the mom says, well, I know you're upset, Stephanie. This is just more decisions that you're going to have to make. And Stephanie said, what other decisions am I going to have to make? I'm legally bound. I have the house now. I have the business. Wow. I have everything.
Yes, she does. Yes. And everybody, that was yet another man to tell what to do, the lawyer.
Yes, I know. Who does that remind us of? Yeah. Sarah Boone.
Yes, I know. Sarah Crazy Boone.
I know. Well, Stephanie's mom apparently stated, too, at that point, she's like, I was talking about making decisions about the funeral arrangements, not all of his things.
And you went way over there.
Right, which shows you where your mind
was. You're not guilty.
Right.
Sorry.
Exactly. At any rate, she wraps up the conversation with her mom. All of this is recorded. The police are noting her reaction to when they informed her, the things that she's saying to her mother. And then she talks about how the other inmates in the jail are basically saying, yeah, well, with him being gone, you're free and clear. So she's excited about the idea of getting out of jail. That seems to be her main focus. So then the investigators go back a few days later on February 6th. And this is in a post-Miranda interview, they say. So he says he spoke with Stephanie Perdue at the jail again. She was informed that the sheriff's office was working a criminal investigation. And Stephanie was like, yeah, I'll cooperate. I didn't know anyone wanted to hurt Shawn. And I didn't know anyone, stated that she and David were not in an intimate relationship. And she did allow him to stay in her apartment, but they weren't really together. She stated that to her knowledge, David didn't know or has not previously met Shawn. She didn't know how David would have any personal information, including Shawn's place of address, his place of work, the vehicles he's driving. So basically, investigators are confronting her little by little without coming right out yet and saying, we know we've been listening. We know you planned all this. They're saying, well, why does David have all this information? Why is he staying at your apartment? How close were you guys? And she's like, I don't be knowing.
Yeah. Ask somebody else. This is my favorite part, by the way, what you're fixing to tell.
Yeah, exactly. I know. So then they say Stephanie stated that she tried not to lead David on to believe that she wanted a relationship with him, but that, he had messaged her several times at the jail, telling her how much he loved her and wanted to be married to her and wanted them to have kids together. And she said, well, I didn't always reply, but yeah, I said I loved him too, just to let him know that, I guess whenever she got out, might keep her options open or whatever.
Yeah, let me string you along.
So again, they bring up the $10,000. She's like, I don't know why David would need $10,000. And then the investigator says, I asked Stephanie if she told anyone if he was gone, would her case go away and she could walk out of jail? And he says, Stephanie paused and stated, quote, I don't remember saying that. No. And he says, I asked Stephanie if she has spoken with anyone recently about party favors or presents. And he says, Stephanie paused again and stated, I don't remember what I talked about here recently. And then Stephanie stated she did not have a grandmother that was alive right now, and she did not have one. And then she said, oh, but wait, I do. It's a distant family member. It's a grandma that lives in Beulah, which is right outside of Pensacola. And she said that, yeah, they did have a party for her recently, and they were going to do a get-together of sorts, but she couldn't be specific about who was going to go other than family. And Stephanie asked, why was anybody asking about her grandma's name? And basically, the investigator is really trying to press her for a name of the grandmother, and she essentially refuses to give it. And then he says that he mentioned several times to her that death notification was false and that there was no death notification, that he's actually fine. And Stephanie stated that she was upset and sick to her stomach when the death notification was made to her on Friday, February 3rd. And the investigator says, I asked Stephanie how she felt when I first told her he's still alive. And Stephanie stated she was, quote unquote, happy and that she is relieved. And I asked Stephanie, well, why are you relieved knowing Shawn's alive? And she said, because I can live now and I can breathe. Stephanie stated if Shawn was dead, she would not feel responsible because she was not a part of it. And then she starts accusing him of doing drugs and saying he'd been doing it for a long time and she didn't know what a hot shot was. And then she was like, yeah, I do know what a hot shot is. So she's basically going back and forth, giving inconsistent statements, said that she thought a hot shot was rat poisoning. And then she starts saying she's been reading this book and that a character in the book talked about using fentanyl to, do bad stuff, and that because she was a nurse and she'd been schooling, so she thought that was interesting, that she knew about fentanyl, but she didn't know that it could be used to kill people. She had never heard of anybody using fentanyl to kill somebody. And then she paused and stated, quote, to kill somebody. Oh, I don't know. No, I don't know anything about that, is what she told the investigator. So she described the book as, quote, the Captivity series by Katie Souza. And she said it was like a 3-part book series and that this person was looking at 13 years of federal crime in federal prison for these crimes that were revolved around guns and drugs and meeting someone to give them drugs. And the drugs were laced with rat poison in reference to the hot shot. So I don't know if art was imitating life or life was imitating art, but he starts asking her about this book. And I said, he says to her, I asked Stephanie if the story in her book was related to the solicitation by her to kill her husband. Stephanie did not immediately say anything. Stephanie, with a soft voice, stated, what? No. So,
she's so dumb.
I know. In your opinion,
Yeah,
and in my opinion as well.
Okay.
But yeah, so Stephanie did not respond when I asked her. Multiple people have come forward to law enforcement stating she wanted to kill her husband. Stephanie slightly shook her head back and forth from side to side, and she did not answer the question. And I asked Stephanie if I could tell her why I think she is relieved he is alive, and Stephanie said yes. And I informed Stephanie I believe she is relieved because she thought throughout the weekend he was dead, and now knowing he is alive, she does not have to face a murder charge. And
that sounds right.
Yep. And then said Stephanie took a deep breath and looked down into her lap. Stephanie responded after a short time with, quote, "I would never, never, never do anything to hurt him," end quote. And a short time later, she asked for Mr. Griffith, who is her attorney of record for these cases, and no further questions were asked. So basically, the investigator wraps it all up, even talking about the shooting. He's like, showed up uninvited, wasn't supposed to be there, brought a gun to an unwanted argument, and then, during the argument, decides to shoot him and then fired multiple rounds. He was treated for it. He survived. She violates the temporary restraining order, goes back to jail, seems to blame him for it. And her whole focus was on getting rid of him to get out of jail and get all of his stuff, is what the sheriff's investigators say. So what's frustrating for Shawn, when we were talking to him, is basically waiting on this to go to trial. So her attorney has filed several continuances. That's not unusual for murder cases and any kind of death-related cases. Sometimes it just takes a while for them to get their witnesses together and get ready and prepare for trial. But in this case, they have filed continuances twice, and they've been granted. And then another one was just filed September 15th. So not too long ago. The judge hasn't had a chance to rule on that motion yet. So we don't know if this latest continuance will be granted. But they do. Stephanie has another court date scheduled for November 10th to evaluate where things stand on this case as well.
Well, it seems like she's just trying to kick the can down the road to spend her time in jail, not prison, but jail. And it sounds like that's what Shawn thought, that maybe by the time it finally gets to be heard, it may be time served or a smaller sentence. And this old girl going to be out walking around here on the farm in Milton again.
I know, and he said that's what makes him nervous, because he really believes if she gets out, she'll hurt somebody, possibly kill somebody again.
Yeah, danger to everybody, especially him.
Yes, and I mean, he talked about how, his daughter loved her initially, how great things were with the family, and how he thought this was really just such a blessing, and that his daughter seemed to enjoy her and like her, but then that faded as well. He said that she's responsible for some injuries to Lily that happened while she was helping to bathe her. I think he said that her sternum was broken.
Yeah, and that's very concerning, because that's your breastbone right here, one of the strongest bones in your body.
I know. So he said he has PTSD, like I mentioned. He can't sleep a full night. He just got torn up and just couldn't keep it together and cried, understandably so, when he was talking about his daughter and how he's lost parental rights of her because of all this that's been going on, and he hasn't been emotionally or physically able to take care of her to the extent that she needs. But he said it was a blessing that one of her nurses stepped up to adopt her, essentially, and has made it so that he can see her at least once a week. And he sent me several pictures, and if you're listening, you can't see them, but if you're watching, you can see just how much he glows and loves her and how much he seems to enjoy her. And he wants to put this behind him as soon as possible. He has divorced her, since this has gone on. But I do want to give Shawn a chance to talk a little bit about what he would like to see happen in this case.
I want justice done, and I feel it's well overdue, and I don't think she should get out, period. If she gets out in short term or time served, she will kill somebody. There's no doubt in my mind.
Stephanie Perdue has pleaded not guilty to these criminal charges against her. She says she is innocent, and that is why she is going to trial. So her next court date is November 10th. We'll continue to follow up and see what the judge decides, and I hope for Shawn Purdue's sake that there is some resolution in sight.
Yeah, me too. God bless him. Sweet man.
I know. He is a sweet man. And I tell you what, the other moral to the story, I'd be like, bet your girlfriends, boys.
I think so. You know what I say? Date folks for at least 2 years. Everybody can act right for at least one set of holidays. So that second year is when folks start showing out, or at least That's what I think.
Yes, I agree. All right. Well, thank you so much, Pam. And we thank you, our listeners, and those watching on the Gulf Coast Confidential YouTube channel. That is it for Shot in the Neck, Murder for Hire. When will Stephanie Perdue go to trial? I'm your host, writer, and producer, Molly Barrows, with co-host and researcher Pam Hill. And a big thanks, as always, to our director, editor, and production engineer, James Roy. Remember, you can check out more of our episodes on Gulf Coast Confidential wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, including our YouTube channel. Just don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. This episode is brought to you by Zarzar Law.